told you not to do no sin no more. I guess they acting like they hear me. 90 days I let a fiend for. If this what you want, you best go beast mode. And she said, baby, I know you legit. Baby, I know you legit. She said, me like you don't even exist. And I said, UPK made me like this. Bada bing, I popped the least suspect. I start all my crowns, ring and necklace. Do what the men above had taught me. Hey, you say I play too hot, no coffee. I had to change my life like this, yeah. I'm taking life for what it is, yeah. Quit acting blind, you need some lenses. Abiding by the damn scriptures, hey. I told you not to do no sin no more. I guess they acting like they hear me. 90 days I let a fiend for. If this what you want, you best go beast mode. And she said, baby, I know you legit. Baby, I know you legit. She said, me like you don't even exist. And I said, UPK made me like this. I've been up, 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 I've been up. Quit the fuss, show me love, I need love. Don't wanna leave me, yeah. I'm mixing up my damn problems. I'm mixing out all of that violence. If you with me, we on that fly shit. To all these worldly bastards round us, I say, I told you not to do no sin no more. I guess they acting like they hear me. 90 days I let a fiend for. If this what you want, you best go beast mode. And she said, baby, I know you legit. Baby, I know you legit. She said, me like you don't even exist. And I said, UPK made me like this.
According to God, the white man is the devil.
You see, I've been in here for a little minute. You know what I'm saying? And I see niggas, they like to talk a lot. They like to claim leadership. They like to claim this and that. You know what I'm saying? They like to be above what they really is and have authority. But they don't really need that authority. They don't really know what to do with that leadership. You understand? You hold hands with this boy, your ass need to stop and ask you to give a damn what you talk about. Don't give a fuck what you believe, nigga. Gotta stand up and serve my God. We don't pray on our knees, nigga. Yeah. See, everybody ain't with all that peace talk. Everybody ain't with all that bygone be. Boy, your ass need to stop and ask you to profit. It's about to get serious. When they hit us with dope and kill us with crack, where the fuck with your leaders? I'm curious. He cashed out on your blood, traded you in and bought a new biz. Ask you the prophets, I tell you the scheme. If you don't wake up, you gon' die in your dreams. I say you won't, won't tell you no more. I swear these crackers try to kill us slow. Just spoke to a nigga and fed he up for parole because of the COVID. It feel like the host in this world that don't go together. Know that it's gold in the ghetto. I'm in the city blazing with my niggas. Just told the devil the score never settled. Yeah, see the prophets. I'm tired of these niggas keep talking about, you know, you respect my religion, I respect your religion. Boy, your ass need to stop and ask you the prophets. You know, like we all come together. Cause you know what I'm saying? They say God so loved the world. God so loved the world, and know boy, your ass need to stop and ask you the prophets. Don't give a damn what you talk about. Don't give a fuck what you believe, nigga. Gotta stand up to serve my God. We don't pray on our knees, nigga. Yeah. Hey, gentlemen, y'all, we don't pray on our knees, nigga. Gotta stand up. You know what I'm saying? Boy, your ass need to stop and ask you the prophets. Step, I'm solid for show. To the fake niggas, stay silent, I got it, let's go. Let's go. I ain't taking no loss, ain't no token when we got the flow. Ain't no peace, just pay with your own. I'ma be loyal to the right arm.
bury me. I'm one West till they bury me. I'm one West till they bury me. I be one West to the death till they bury me. One West till they bury me. I'm one West till they bury me. I'm one West till they bury me. I be one West to the death till they bury me. I be one West to the death till they bury me. They ain't scaring me. Rip the soul out of Pharisee. Speaking heresy, it get you fucked up apparently. It's like they daring me. I said chill, they ain't hearing me. They ain't listening. Every bar nitroglycerin. Hit your heart, bring it back to start, make you live again. Get them dividends or we start getting ignorant. I be on that soldier shit. I told you shit phenomenal. Nah, but he abdominal. So what you suckers trying to do? Rhyming comical, guess it's funny until I'm bombing you. Bring apocalypse to them pussy niggas that's popping shit. Team of all-stars, I coach them up like I'm Popovich. Fuck the politics and the lobbyists and apologists. They vagina, so we gon' check them like gynecologists. It's kinda obvious how the situation is ominous. The way I vomit this and regurgitate for the audience. They start applauding this cause the competition is fraudulent. From the era where niggas smoke you up like a parliament. The flow been stupid, shit has gotten retarded since all the dominance of one West rising to prominent. Cause I be one West to the death till they bury me. I'm one West till they bury me. I be one West to the death till they bury me. I'm one West till they bury me. I be one West to the death till they bury me. I'm one West till they bury me. I be one West to the death till they bury me. I'm one West till they bury me. They want a nigga quiet, mute my maneuvers, but I ride like I got Groupon for Uber. Rhymes hard like they been viewed by Medusa. 9 milli Luger, 17 in the Ruger. Only need a few to sit up in your medulla. Obligata for the regatta, niggas wildin', they win every dollar. They riding by in black Impalas, let the semi holler. The showstopper, been the proper since the teeny bopper. But now I'm going them off Patron, a premium of vodka. I put extensions on the Glock, modified the chopper. The swore heavy, war ready, and that's working mama. No marijuana, say I got the loudest silence on it. When I'm up on it, ain't no rapper do it like I do it. A lot of spitties and writers, but when they heat's on, none of them can get to the fire around with me. And I had a nigga spin like a tire, but down the D, and I'm still dope as a piper. Every bar burn hard like a spoon with a lighter. Fuel to igniter, I'm winning, coming through with the title because I be one West to the death till they bury me. I'm one West till they bury me. I be one West to the death till they bury me. I'm one West till they bury me. I be one West to the death till they bury me. I'm one West till they bury me. I be one West to the death till they bury me. I'm one West till they bury me.
Baby, no listen to no fake news, them can't. Could do all it out and them never fake news. Notice say I just be a bad bitch, I get forward from with you. But the one you have feel good girl them easy. She never did a features, R-rated. Never did a features, half naked. Me never did a piggy R-rated things halfway, that's why me give R-ratings. She never did a features, half naked. Never did a features, R-rated. Me never did a piggy R-rated things halfway, that's why me give R-ratings. I know every girl a white material. I know every girl forget the juice in my seed bag. I know every girl me trust to cook my food, nor boil my tea, not even put the milk in the cereal. Me like a catty when me dival. When no fi wash for cook fi clean and no fuss. When she hear me get a new girl, I know that me mean when me say me fight me demons. Multiple wife legally, no illegal. Yeah.
straight, me go crazy. I know every cat can be my first lady. I know every press plus body done pay fi plus Tatiana no fit in a no Mercedes. When me say, oh luxury dolly fi nurse baby, a trouble when luxury dolly turn old lady. So big up every girl with no lazy. Your body big, but I your mommy don't hate it. I rate it. Never did a fi dress half naked. Me never did a fi give her be things halfway. That's why me give her ratings. She never did a fi dress half naked. Never did a fi dress her rated. Me never did a fi give her be things halfway. That's why me give her ratings. She now wait pan money for reach her and donation. She make reach her man donation. 101, but he waste gal a pill her fi leave her man, but she stay strong. She know say them are no friends, them are haters. Them sleep with every man in a the acre. Can't get nobody fi stay long and want the advice for relation. Baby no listen to no fake news. Them can't keep a man 'cause them never stay true. Could do all it out and them never pay dues. Never shut them out and them wicked and cruel, eh? Bag a man a rush but them just a get yours. Everything them have them did a fear blows. Instagram live them mute for the views. Baby that I know you though. Sure, I rate it. Never did a fi dress half naked. Me never did a fi give her be things halfway. That's why me give her ratings. She never did a fi dress half naked. Never did a fi dress her rated. Me never did a fi give her be things halfway. That's why me give her ratings.
One West.
Yo, what about the bumbo clock to them boy, man? Bad mind never kill them. Suffocate on a pussy. Yo, status. Tell some boys we don't chat us. Anyway, my dogs go in on the street, them bad. Gun talking up with jeans member. If any somebody ever treat them bad, send the pussy them but meet them God. Louis V kicks, pan we feed them bad. Catch a new drip, dog we beat them bad. Look how we just come and we a beat them bad. You know sister we's them dad. Hey, but anyway though, this a no playground. The Glock 19, they have to stay round. Nah take no check with me payroll. Anything rise up, play down. Them a send check but they won't. Dog we will make it step if they don't. But at the same old, said them want smoke but the grab a done flame out. A couple gyal a come through. Gyal a WhatsApp what she gonna come to. She a give me tap and she swallow some juice. Gyal a suck cock till me Jonathan blow. Bentley van a come through. Convert to the drop top still have a sunroof. The dog them roll strap you want proof. Alright, wanna move. Anyway my dogs go in the street them bad. Gun talking up with jeans member. If any somebody ever treat them bad, send the pussy them but meet them God. Louis V kicks, pan we feed them bad. Catch a new drip, dog they beat them bad. Look how we just come and we a beat them bad. You know see say we's them dad. Jeff say go fuck it up, so we fuck it up. Big up all of me friend them all who me never big up. All who know they ass up, I ain't in a cup. Life shake up, you know me friend but that's how we go. Greenfield say we tough, so we a fi bust. And all who a flip up and a lip up a fill it up. Girl pussy way buff, one give we a fuck. One the pussy bust, one her belly stuff with the fat cock. Nicky me give back shot really. Girl a bad hype up if you're not that pretty. Money say make you know him can't chat silly. Anything we beat we have a fat clock with it. Flick your bad with it, this a chop city. Anywhere we go we a lock that city. Money in a pocket see the fat Billy. Don't come around if you're not family. Anyway my dogs go in on the street them bad. Gun talking up with jeans member. If any somebody ever treat them bad, send the pussy them but meet them God. Louis V kicks, pan we feed them bad. Catch a new drip, dog they beat them bad. Look how we just come and we a beat them bad. You know sister we's them dad.
All right, clap it up. Clap it up. We are the ISUPK, started out on West 125th Street, Harlem, New York, under the command of General Yohana. And we teach that blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians are the real, true, biblical Hebrew Israelites, God's chosen people. Okay, just a quick rundown of what we're going on in the school. And then we'll jump straight into tonight's class. So Monday night, we've got the law class. Tuesday night, we've got Wednesday night, the history class. Thursday night, the scripture breakdown class. Friday, we'll have 2 epic shows. We've got a class, a Lashwan Kodash class, which is God's holy tongue, the Most High's holy tongue. And then from 9 till 11, we've got our radio show, the podcast on the ends.
That's right.
Okay, so all the live classes from the school are Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday, 7 till 9 streamed on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Okay, and Tuesdays and Fridays class are not accessible to the public, the so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians at the school. The school is not open on the Tuesday and Friday, so don't. If you're thinking of attending the classes, the live classes from the school are Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Please try and bear that in mind. We don't want any brothers, sisters waltzing down to the school on nights when the school is not open. Okay, that being said, okay, we have a Saturday morning Sabbath service, 10 to 11, and then we hit the street for street camp from 12 till 5. Alternative weeks, Leicester City Centre, Leicester Central, and Birmingham Central, at the bottom of the Bullring ramp. That's where you'll find us on a Saturday afternoon, keeping street camp. And don't forget Saturday morning Sabbath service. That also is accessible from the school. So you blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians, get yourself down to the school for the Sabbath service Saturday.
That's right.
This is the home of the truth. This is where you're going to find out who you are, where you come from, what's happened to you, and what you need to do if you believe in the Most High God for salvation. This is where you're going to find it, nowhere else. Okay? That being said, we're going to jump straight into tonight's class.
Like to let them know this week we left out the clock tower and the class at 5 to 7 as well in Maidstone Road as well.
Okay, so yeah, we've got a street camp this week in Leicester Central, Leicester Clock Tower. That's at the city centre this Saturday, 12 till 5. Make it a date, and then straight after class, I believe from 6 till 8.
No, it's 5 to 7.
5 till 7 at Maidstone Road, St. Peter's Estate, Highfields, Leicester. You'll find Maidstone Road, the Caribbean Centre. We're keeping class. Is that scripture breakdown class?
That's right, yeah.
Officer Dungabar with the scripture breakdown class from 5 till 7 p.m. You don't want to miss these classes. Okay, we're in turbulent times now. You see what's going on with Trump, Greenland, Ukraine, Russia, in the Middle East, the Gaza Strip with the fake Jewish man, and the Arabs, the Palestinians. So we know we're on the verge of something breaking out, something big. And we're living in these are the end days. These are the last days. We've got to prepare ourselves and get ourselves ready as Israel, so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians. Time is running out. Okay, so tonight's class is called Badagry, Point of No Return. First of all, what is Badagry? What is Badagry? What does it stand for? And where is it? Badagry is a place where the so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians were stolen from. We were stolen from, it's in the west coast of Africa, and we was put in yokes of iron and taken to slave auctions where we was sold, and then we was mounted as cargo onto slave merchant ships, and we sailed across turbulent waters, the transatlantic waters, through the transatlantic slave trade to the Americas, the Caribbean and South and Central America. And that's where we are today. Not all of us, we scattered to the four corners of the earth, but this is where slavery begun. Okay, and if you know this is a law class, if you can comprehend or fathom anything to do with the laws of the Most High God found in our records, the Holy Bible, King James Version 1611, you will understand that slavery was a judgment. Slavery was a judgment, not just any judgment, it was a punishment heaped on you so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians because of our disobedience.
That's right.
Because we were a stiff-necked people, according to the Bible. We were a stiff-necked people, according to the Most High God. We couldn't listen, we couldn't hearken. We didn't want to know. We wanted to turn our face away from God. We thought we knew better than the Most High God. And look what happened to us. Okay? Badagry happened to us.
That's right.
A point of no return. So if Badagry is the location of the beginning of slavery, why did it become infamous and known as the point of no return?
That's because when we leave there, she ain't coming back.
That's right. That's from Captain Crathius in class. He said, because once you left the point of Badagry, there was no coming back. Once, if a slave wasn't mounted onto one of the slave ships, it was probably because for two reasons. They either was not ready, they was not ready for the journey, they wasn't deemed ready or fit enough, or they escaped, which was few and far between. Okay, but once you was mounted as cargo onto that slave ship from Badagry, there was no coming back. There was no coming back to then what we called home, one of the tribes that you belong to, because we weren't Hamites. Remember, we wasn't indigenous to Africa. We'd been there for 1,500 years, 70 AD, according to our historical records and according to our biblical records. We'd only been there 1,500 years. We weren't indigenous to Africa. We was indigenous to Israel.
That's right.
What the so-called white man today calls the Middle East. Okay, so if Badagry was the location, the point of no return means once you was packed, once you was gagged and bagged, so to speak, and mounted on these slave merchant ships as cargo, there was no coming back. That was the point of no return, Badagry. And it was a rough journey to get to the coast, to Badagry. Imagine, we was caught inland in fishing nets, and we was put into wooden carts and wooden kennels, wooden cages, and these cages were designed to fit 6 goats, 10 lambs, and they'd be shoved and rammed with 30 slaves, 30 so-called Negro slaves, 30 so-called Black, Hispanic, and Native Indian slaves. So can you imagine the condition of us before we even got to the boats, just on arrival to Badagry, the point of no return? So we're going to watch a quick video about that, because I just come back from Badagry and done a report. Okay, so I was there for a month. I'd done an intense report on the point of no return, which was Badagry. And this was the biggest slave port on the west coast of Africa. 24% of all the so-called Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians were stolen and shipped as cargo, slave cargo, onto these merchant ships from Badagry. 24%. Badagry is about 40 kilometers, 50 kilometers west of Lagos. Lagos is Nigeria's second biggest city. So imagine if you was taken from Abuja, which is the capital, we're talking about 140 maybe around 140 kilometers, which today on the coach is 6 hours. So imagine in a car, if your tribe was anywhere around the capital, Badagry, 500 years ago, the intense travel, the trek you made from Badagry from Abuja to Badagry. So you got something.
So you got captured in the capital. You gotta make it to the coast, get sold. And you're telling me this ain't no cars, or nothing like that. So you're playing a horseback or whatever, going through rough terrain and sand and desert and forest to get to the shores.
Forest, hill and gully, back bush, bushback, all kinds of madness. Not being fed proper, so who's getting worms, bellyache every day. By the time we got to Badagry, many of us were not fit for the transatlantic journey, but still were packed, locked and loaded and put on ships.
So many people, I've heard a long time, many people talk about the journey on the ships. And we talk about how rough it was. It's mad because we never heard about the journey before the ship. I never even thought about it. That's mad,
Crazy.
Before the ship, there was a journey in the country. That's mad.
Yeah. And don't forget, we was caught in fishing nets. Can you imagine? Do you think these Hamites sterilized and cleaned these fishing nets that we were caught in? Can you imagine how we stunk by the time we got to the slave port of Badagry, the point of no return? Can you imagine how our ancestors, our grandfather smelled? And remember, we're the cleanest people in the world. We gave the world hygiene.
That's right.
Without you so-called Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, the Europeans were living in caves. And for 952 years, the Europeans lived in caves and didn't know how to make fires and couldn't build fires and didn't know how to wash. It's just the other day, the so-called Europeans learned how to wash. Who did they learn how to wash from? You got something, Mozart?
You know that I was watching a documentary about the same thing about hygiene standard. Some of these so-called didn't want to bake and they think like it's gonna harm them in their beard.
Yeah, so Officer Mozart said there was a period of time in the so-called white man's history where they was frightened to wash. They was frightened to cause friction on the skin and get rid of that top layer of dead skin cells, which is why we rub our skin when we're in the shower. You don't need, contrary to what the white man's taught us, the so-called white man, you need soap, you need this, you need that to be clean. No, you don't. If you notice, the more soap, the more Radox you use in the shower, the tighter the more cream you use when you come out, because the more hashy you become. The more chemicals you put on the skin, the tighter your skin becomes. All soap does is tighten your skin. It doesn't necessarily clean your skin unless you've got a Dettol bar of soap. Yeah. What constitutes hygiene and self-cleanliness is shedding that top layer of dead skin cells. So the underlayer of new skin cells is surfaced, comes to the surface. And that's why we use friction and water to help. It happens 24 hours, just like reptiles. We shed a top layer of skin every 24 hours, whether you're sleeping in bed, tossing and turning in bed and rubbing, and that top layer of skin cell, you always see them little white dots in your bed sheets. That's your dead skin cells. When you get out of the bath or the shower and you see that ring around the bath, the top of the bath, that's a layer of dead skin cells. We get in the shower and we help that process by causing friction. That takes off the top layer of skin cells. Now, according to, well, not according, but factually, Officer Mozart just said he's watched, was it a documentary or something that he watched where he saw that the so-called white man, the European, was afraid of this friction, this action of friction and water. Okay, and look at today. Fast forward to today. Look at commercialism. How fragrances and soaps are commercialized to confuse the world, to make us believe it's the amount of soap suds and the amount of aftershave you put on which constitutes self-hygiene and cleanliness. No, it does not. All that does is makes you smell different, makes you smell nice, or so allegedly, according to them. And I'm not saying I don't use deodorant. I do, but Deodorant and soap is not what constitutes self-hygiene or cleanliness. So water and friction. I mean, you can have a dry wash. If you've got a sponge or a flannel, what constitutes cleanliness and self-hygiene is that top layer of dead skin cells being shed and a new layer of skin cells coming through. That's what constitutes cleanliness. But moving on with the class, we're getting a bit off topic here. Just pull me Exodus 32 and 9 real quick before we go into the video. Got a lot of precepts tonight. Okay, this is a biblical law class, so we're going to have a look at the law. And this, let's not forget, Badagry was a judgment. It was a punishment because we couldn't keep the law. Imagine we'd have been keeping the law, the transatlantic slave trade would have never happened.
That's
to
right.
us. Imagine we had kept the law, okay? Egypt would have never happened to us.
That's right.
Imagine we kept the law, Assyria, Persia, Macedonia would never have happened to us. All these slaveries and captivities we experienced was because of the law, because we couldn't keep it. We couldn't listen to our father and do as we were damn well told. That's it, period. There's nothing else to this. Exodus 32 and 9, Barbara Shaw.
The book of Exodus.
Just before you read it, this precept illustrates and demonstrates the reason we went into slavery, because the Most High God told Moses we were stiff-necked. Read that, Barbara Shaw.
The book of Exodus 32 verse 9. And the Lord said unto Moses.
And who said to Moses?
And the Lord said unto Moses.
Read.
I have seen these people, and behold, it is a stiff-necked people.
No, it's an obedient people.
It's a stiff-necked people.
It's a people that love to listen all the time.
It is a stiff-necked people.
And who are these people that the Most High God's telling Moses about?
Children of Israel.
The children of Israel, as so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians. Read that again, Baba Kashaw.
Okay. Exodus 32 verse 9. And the Lord said unto Moses, I have seen these people, and behold, it is a stiff-necked people.
We were a stiff-necked people, and guess what our punishment was? We ended up with a yoke of iron in a slave auction in Badagry, where we were sold by indigenous African Hamites, kings, and their version of lords, earls, and what else have you got? The hierarchy of dukes, their version of the United Kingdom's dukes, earls, and lords, and kings and queens. Africa had their fake royal bloodline in these days. We're talking about approximately 500 years ago, and they had a fake royal bloodline, especially in Nigeria and Ghana. And we're talking specifically here about Badagry, which is one of the major cities in Nigeria. Like I said, it's 30-40 kilometers west of Lagos, which is Nigeria's second biggest city. In fact, I think Lagos is bigger than Abuja. Lagos is the original capital of Nigeria. It changed to Abuja. I'm not gonna teach what reason, because I'm not sure. I think it had something to do with location, like Kingston and Spanish Town, and London and Manchester. Manchester being the original capital of the UK, and they wanted a capital in the southern part of the country for import-export with Europe. That's why London, because it's in that gap there of the Sheppey, of the Isle of Sheppey, the Thames estuary that opens up and goes out to sea. London's right there on that coast there. So it made it easy to import and export, like Liverpool. But Liverpool's on the other side of the country. So that's, and Badagry is one of the major cities in Nigeria. But if we look at Badagry, 24% of slaves sailed from Badagry. That's a staggering statistic. That's a quarter of the west coast of Africa's slave trade.
Tell me something about Badagry, is that right?
So like you said,
Can I read it?
go ahead, sir.
Right, my bad. And it reads, Badagry was one of the routes that benefited from the ongoing slave trade conflict between Port Novo and Dahomey at the end of the 18th century. Slaves taken during inter-village conflicts were auctioned off at Badagry.
And there you have it. They're auctioned off at Badagry. And I've just got a piece to extend to that. Watch this. Badagry is a historical coastal town in Lagos State. So there's a state called Lagos and a city called Lagos. Badagry is 35 kilometers, similar to Leicester and Birmingham, the distance. And it says known for its significant role in the transatlantic slave trade, serving as a major port and a gateway. It was the biggest number of slaves of Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans was stolen and taken to Badagry in Nigeria, 24%. And the reason I keep harping on about this stat is because it's a staggering amount of slaves. 80, 90 million approximate slaves were stolen and taken through the transatlantic slave trade over 400 years. Imagine. Let's go from, this is the British slave trade we're talking about, which lasted 250 years. And let's not forget, the Spaniards ran slavery for the first 150 years. The English beat the Armada in the Great European War, the so-called Great European War, and took up the spoils of war. The slave trade was one of the spoils of war that the Spanish owned and possessed. They'd coincided it with the Portuguese, who were the original European slave traders and slave merchants. So England picked up that slave trade automatically, and they ran it for another 250 years, right up until the 14th Amendment and the abolishment of slavery, the abolition of slavery, which was drew up by the U.S. administration. What's the president's name? President Lincoln in 1864, and executed a year later in 1865. Okay. Yeah, so England won the European war, beat the Armada, beat the Spanish military, and picked up the slave trade for 250 years. In that 250 year, we're concentrating on the British slave trade. So for that 250 years specifically, you do the maths. Okay, 88 million so-called slaves were stolen and transported over 400 years. So I haven't got the stats here, but imagine 50 million was in the 250 years and 32 million in the Spanish slave trade. Okay, and that's not a fact. That's just numbers I'm throwing out there for just for peace sake. Okay, so imagine it's 50 million. A quarter of them 50 million were stolen and sailed from Badagry. So over 250 years, almost a quarter of the transatlantic slave trade, the Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians that went on British, English slave ships from Badagry to the Caribbean and South and Central America. The stats say it was 24%. That's nearly a quarter. That's nearly a quarter of the entire of the west coast of Africa's slave trade. And let's not forget, most of the West African countries were trading slaves, were trading us, Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians. Togo, Benin, Ghana, Cameroon, Ivory Coast, Sierra Leone, Gambia, Mali, Senegal. They was all Guinea. They was all trading as so-called Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians. But a quarter of that number of slaves sailed from Badagry, this slave port that I visited and did a report on. Let's watch the video. Give me Galatians 5:1, Barber Show.
The well was dug in 1847 by the slaves, and ever since then,
this well was made in 1847.
And ever since then, the well never run dry.
And it was made by the slaves?
Yes.
Okay, for drinking water. And were the slaves allowed to drink from it?
Of course, that's the source of the water.
Okay.
Can you pause that?
You can pause and sit when you want, right?
Yeah, pause it there. Okay, so what we just saw was a well that we devised because they love to dehydrate us at Badagry. We made our own well in Badagry, before we was auctioned. But guess what? Guess what happened with this well that I got to find out? The Africans were always scared of us. You don't really believe it's only the white man that fear us. All these nations fear so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians. These indigenous Africans, the Hamites, were spiking our water. They were spiking the well with their potions and their concoctions that was making us docile, to keep us docile and submissive. So this submissive thing that the so-called white man put us through on slave plantations in the southern states of America, the southwest states of America, and the Caribbean islands and South America, we can't say for sure that they got it from the Hamites, but it was an identical mistreatment of our people. Okay, so it wasn't just the so-called white man that was teaching us, using our own records to keep us docile and submissive. The Hamites took it a step further. Before we were spiritually destroyed, they was physically destroying us by spiking our water and physically making us docile. And today they use a thing called liquid kosh to calm mental patients down. It would have been a similar concoction to that, a liquid kosh that made us, because when you see mental patients that have just had their medication, when a medication should be a spiritual cleansing, because that madness on that person is a demon according to the Bible. That's right. But the white man says, no, pump him with drugs till he can't talk, till he's slurring his words, till he walks like he moves like he's moving backwards. He's so slow. That's the concoction they give people nowadays, the so-called white man. It's a medication called liquid kosh. I don't know the medical or the technical term for it, but it's known in the streets as liquid kosh. That would have been a similar concoction that the Hamites was putting in the well that we made at Badagry to make us docile, slow, and submissive. You got something, other one?
Yes, this one nice. So Lakia, where was the well as well? Nigeria or Ghana?
This is Nigeria, sis. Badagry, the point of no return. The west coast of Africa's largest transportation of slaves, so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians. Like I said, 24% of us, 24% of slaves during the English, the British slave trade, which was about 250 years approximately there. 24% of us were stolen and sailed from Badagry, this slave port right here. Continue with the videos, sir. Bob Kasha. Any questions, just type them in the stream.
This is the court of Shifsirikule Sabas, where he used to pass judgment when he was slave. And
was there any trading going on here?
The court.
The court.
Yes, that is the court of Shifsirikule Sabas.
And
also the CUZ of the palace.
Who's where we was lined up? Yeah, come. Okay, so this was the slave auction. What we're looking at now is the actual slave auction, where they had a wooden podium, like a stage in the background, and we was lined up along there with we had yokes of iron around our neck, and there was an iron pole across the top that we was chained to. So we wasn't only chained and shackled from the feet and hands, we was tied to a metal pole above our heads, like we was about to be hung, like we was on the gallows. And that's how they used to hold us, because we was a rebellious people. We would have ran out of the slave auction and up the beach or into the water, and whether we could swim or not. Okay, look, it's over. I think, what's the stat? 45% of us that was thrown overboard. The majority of us, the stats higher than 45, the majority percent of us couldn't swim. And we, not that if you got thrown over in a ship in the transatlantic slave trade, you would survive anyway, treading water for God knows how many days. But the majority of us could not swim anyway. So we was doomed and drowned. So, you know, not to say that a lot of these sharks that was eating us was eating dead carcasses because we had already drowned. But some of us were live bait to the sharks. But this is the actual slave auction where the African kings auctioned us. We was a possession of theirs, and they was auctioning us to slave merchants. So this is the original slave auctions, and then the Portuguese, the French, the Spanish, only the so-called white slave merchants bought us from here, from the African kings and the African hierarchies. Yeah, and from there, when we sailed across the transatlantic slave trade, then your average Joe Bloggs came to the auctions in the Americas, and your average Joe Bloggs, so-called white man, were entitled to buyers and possessors and owners. Okay, that's just a short rundown of the transatlantic slave trade. But these were the first slave auctions on the west coast of Africa, Badagry. This was where we was kept in the worst conditions. We think that slave plantation was bad. Some of us were happy to get out of Africa and see them slave plantations, because how we was kept in Badagry was not fit for any human being. Believe that. Let's watch the end of the video, Baba Kashar.
Here, slaves.
Giving judgment to the slaves, likewise the Muslim society that covered.
For what crimes? What crimes were they being judged?
Any slave that used to go to the farm.
Rebelliousness.
Yes, and they used to go to the farm, so this is where the judge them.
Okay, so rebellious slaves were brought here to this spot here,
yes,
and they were judged. And what would be their judgment generally?
Sometimes they behead them, sometimes they kill them, sometimes they hang them. You can see the one they hang.
Come. Okay, so if you look at the side of the slave auction, there was a little chambers. That's where they was judged. So if you went into the slave auction kicking and screaming, you'd be taken on the spot to the chambers next door. You'd be judged, and you'd either be beheaded or hung. And the spot where they hung, I'm sure in the video you'll see it, is 20 yards away from the auction and the chambers where they were judged. So this all happened within a couple of hours. You was kicking and screaming. You was trying to get out of your chains and shackles. You was trying to release yourself from your bondage that these kings' servants and workers and military men had put you in. And you would be taken to one side, judged. You wouldn't get a warning. You'd be judged in the chambers next to the slave auction. And then from there, you'd be marched 20 yards across to the gallows, and you'd either be beheaded or hung. This sounds very similar to the slave plantations, right, where we were whipped, where we had our feet chopped off so we couldn't run away, and where we were hung from trees. Very similar experience, if not worse. Let me not say worse, because nothing's worse than the treatment than the so-called white man, the oppressor, did to us. Okay, but these Hamites did us no favors. They did us no favors. Let's continue.
Okay, so rebellious slaves were brought here to this spot here,
yes,
and they were judged. And what would be their judgment generally?
Sometimes they behead them, sometimes they kill them, sometimes they hang them. You can see the one they hang over there.
Where?
Down.
So they bring the slaves here to judge them and then hang them,
yes,
across the court.
Yeah, is that the video done? Yeah. Okay, so that was the tour guide I was with there. Okay, and we went all around that slave auction. That's a very small portion of the tour. There was museums. There was an ancient ship, and tour guides for each and every individual spot. There's about 5 museums that I visited in Badagry. This is not a museum. This was the actual point of no. This is not the actual point of no return. We visited the point of no return. This was the actual slave auction where slaves were sold and judged, not where they was captured. This is where we were sold and judged, so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians. And this was the tour guide for the slave auction and chambers. When we talk about chambers, we're talking about a courtroom, what we call a courtroom nowadays. And you saw at the side of the auction, it was a segregated room that was about 15 by 15. So we was just marched into there. We was taken down off the metal rail with the yoke of iron still around us, 2 guards either side of us, one of them holding the chain so we couldn't run off. We had a heavy iron ball around our ankles with chains on both ankles, and we had chains and around our wrists, and that chain would be hooked up to the chains to the ankles, and we'd be marched 10 yards next door through the door into the chambers, or what we call nowadays the kangaroo court, and we'd be tried on the spot for being rebellious, giving the guards who were holding us and the servants trouble, and we'd be sentenced to death. And that punishment would be a beheading or a hanging. And let's not forget, we didn't get a chance to say bye to our children and our wives. We was marched 20, 30 yards. Do you see where the well was? Back to where the well was. Just at the back of the well is where they hung us and chopped our necks off. And we was just left there. No burial, no funeral, no cremation. Not that we are allowed a cremation. We don't burn ourselves. We go into the ground as we came out of the womb. And that is that. That is the slave auction. That was our experience, blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians. And that was a punishment. But Badagry was a punishment. It was a judgment for our lawlessness. It was a judgment for us not listening to our Father. It was a judgment for us being disobedient and wicked as hell. You got something, Mozart?
You know, you mentioned that they shackle you around the neck with a piece of the chain and with the iron bar.
Yeah.
Is that because they were so afraid of us?
Yes, but we was rebellious. You heard the Hamite. You heard the tourist guy there telling me there were so many rebellious slaves. It's not just 1 or 2. I mean, it was like wave after wave of us that just wanted to either kill these Hamites and escape or just escape and run. And don't forget, imagine 10% of us must have been Usain Bolts. You know, we're the fastest people. Do you think history's ever changed? We've always been the fastest people on this earth. Okay, some of these Hamites can run marathons and can run from city to city, but they can't run fast. We run fast. We escape. We get away. Or we capture. But we are the fastest people God ever put on this green earth. Then none of them Hamites are catching us. Once we're gone, we're gone. And to them kings, them earls, them lords, the hierarchy of Africa, them dukes, they would lose money. We was a pot of gold to them. When these Europeans landed on the west coast of Africa and started trading with these Hamites, they were picking their jaws off the ground, these Portuguese trade merchants, because they weren't originally slave merchants. They came as trade merchants. They wanted the Hamites gold, silver, cranium, oil, They wanted all their natural resources. And guess what these Europeans brought? Tobacco and alcohol to mad up the Africans. That's what they brought to trade. And when they saw us, the first thing that these Portuguese said to these Hamite kings and the hierarchy is, who the hell are them? Why don't they look grubby and nasty and skinny like you? What kind of black people are they? How come they look so different to you? How come they move so different? How come they're so clean? How come they're so athletic? How come they're so intelligent? Yeah, but it doesn't matter how intelligent we were. This was ordained because we were disobedient. It doesn't matter when you're in secondary school, if you're in every top tier, every top class, French, biology, geography, PE, English, maths, cooking, music. You can be in all the top classes. You know the top classes in secondary school? If you're misbehaving at home, what's your dad going to do? Your father's going to punish you. He's going to beat you. He's going to ground you. You're going to stay in your room. You're going to do more chores. You're going to be punished. Why do we think our Father is any different? Why would we think our Father who art in heaven would be any different? Who is more holier than the Most High God? Who is more separate than him? Nobody. So when you go home, your Father is separate to you. If you're in every top class, we could be the best runners. We could be the most intelligent. We could be the cleanest people. If we're misbehaving and being disobedient to our Father, we're going to get punishment. And guess what? Badagry was a punishment.
That's right.
Galatians 5:1. Baba Kashar, can you get me Deuteronomy 28 and 15, Baba Kashar? Let's skip through a few precepts.
Stand fast.
Stand what?
Stand fast. Therefore, in the liberty wherewith Christ hath made us free, and be not entangled against with the yoke of bondage.
The what of bondage?
The yoke of bondage.
And there's that yoke of iron from Badagry, started in Badagry, commenced in Badagry. Christ has given us our liberty back. Yeah? If we was in that yoke of bondage in Badagry, which we know our history, we know what happened to us, we got our records, okay? And if we know this, and we fathom this, and we don't want to go through the same reoccurring bondage again and again and again, what do we have to do? Because Christ has shown us the way. Christ has given us that second chance. He's redeemed us. And he's not just redeemed you and me. This second chance is not just for the priests and prophets of the ISUPK. It just so happens that the priests and prophets of the ISUPK are the ones that snatched that second chance. Under the command of General Yohana, this is what we have done. We don't want that bondage. We don't want to be in mental bondage or physical bondage. So we've taken this second chance that Christ has given us. We've took our liberty back. We're at liberty to teach this because we have our liberty. Okay, we're no longer in Badagry. Okay, and even though we don't have our land back, we know exactly what we need to do.
That's right.
We know exactly what's expected of us and what we should stay away from. Okay, that yoke of bondage. That yoke of bondage is the lies we so easily eat up and swallow. The Immaculate Conception, the unholy Trinity, and Christ coming back to save everybody. This is what we eat up and swallow. Why? Because we're still in Badagry. We're in a different Badagry. We're in a mental bondage. That's what we're in, and it's written in our law. It's written in our law, and Christ came back to redeem us. And you're foolish. You're a damn fool if you don't take this second chance.
That's right.
Deuteronomy 28 and 15, Baba Kashar.
Deuteronomy 28 verse 15.
Kind.
28 and 15. In that one page, I want to know. But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe to do all his commandments and all his statutes, which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee.
Okay, so Badagry was never made for us, but became our punishment because of our disobedience. Badagry was a curse.
That's right.
Badagry was a curse. And I imagine you want to reverse that curse and turn it into a blessing. What must you do, Officer Mozart? And how do you do that? The Officer Mozart answered by saying you keep the law, statutes, and commandments. And that's what we teach, because this is a law class. And how do you keep the law, statutes, and commandments? Yeah, but physically, how do you keep the law, statutes, commandments? Where do you go to learn them? But for the listening public out there, you so-called Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians, where would you go to learn these laws, statutes, and commandments and to keep them?
You go to the congregation like ISUPK will teach you.
You go to one of the ISUPK schools.
That's right.
And you would become a student, and you'd do your 90 days, and you'd get your name. And you'd get your name, and you would study. And then you'd study, and you'd take your officer's exam.
That's right.
And you'd pass your officer's exam, whether it takes you one, 2, 3 times, or 10 times. You pass your officer's exam, and you start to pass this on as it was passed on to you. That's the order of distinction. That's the order of the day. This is how this is what every man's gone through in the ISUPK. This is what all the priests and prophets have gone through under the command of General Yahanna. Deuteronomy 28 and 68, Baba Kashar. Anybody get me that? And whoever gets me Deuteronomy 28 and 68, could someone get me Deuteronomy 28 and 32, Baba Kashar?
Well, 68 first, yeah.
Kind of.
Deuteronomy 28, 68. And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, by the way whereof I spake unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again. And then he shall be sold unto your enemies.
There will be what?
Sold unto your enemies.
There you go. Yeah.
For bondmen and bondwomen.
For what?
Bondmen and bondwomen.
Okay, so this is one of the most recited precepts in the Bible, in the UPK. This is one of the most recited precepts. We have taught this from day dot more than probably any other precept, without me again going into stats. Okay, we were cargo from Badagry. That's what this is talking about. Okay, so if Deuteronomy 15 and 13 is regarding to Ramesses and Pharaoh and our first 400 years of slavery, in fact, just get Exodus 15 and 13 for me, Baba Kashar, if you don't mind, because we know we've had 400 years of Badagry. 400 years of bondage. Yeah, 15 and 13. It's talking about 400 years. Abraham being born. Read that, Baba Kashar. Read that. Mozart, just read that. Leave that a minute. Read that.
The book of Exodus 15 verse 13. Thou in thy mercy hast led for the people which thou art redeemed, art thou given, thou guiding them in thy strength unto the holy habitation.
Salakia. Did I say Exodus?
Exodus.
Go Genesis. Genesis 15 and 13.
The book of Genesis 15 verse 13. And he said unto Abraham, know of a surety that thy seed shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs, and shall serve them, and they shall afflict them 400 years.
Okay, so this is a prophecy to Abraham, who became Abraham at a later date. And what does that prophecy reveal? That we would go into bondage for 400 years, and that was Egypt. Now read Deuteronomy 28 and 68 again, just to illustrate and demonstrate. We've been into two 400 years of slavery, 8 centuries, and this is discounting the Assyrian captivity, the Persian captivity, the Macedonian captivity, the Babylonian captivity. How many captivities do you so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians want before the penny drops?
That's right.
How many? Listen, Christ has redeemed us. We see in Galatians 5:1. He's redeemed us. There's no more chances. This is it, Israel. There's no more chances. Baba Kishar, read that again, Baba Kishar.
Deuteronomy 28 verse 68. And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships.
Okay, so there you go. If the first one in Genesis 15 and 13 was talking about Ramesses, was talking about Pharaoh, was talking about the Egyptian bondage, 430 years approximately. Here's the transatlantic slave trade. Read that again, Baba Shah.
And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships.
With ships. The only time we went, the only time any tribes or nation of people went into slavery on ships. This is a prophecy revealing the transatlantic slave trade. Is there any questions? Any questions? Give me Deuteronomy 28 and 32, Baba Kishar.
Deuteronomy 28, verse 32.
And Mozart, get me John 8 and 3. Baba Kishar.
Thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people, and thine eyes shall look and faint with longing for them all the day long, and there shall be no might in thy hand.
Okay, so here's another prophecy Moses revealed through the Spirit of the Most High God, that we would be segregated from our families, from our little ones, from our children, our sons and our daughters. Guess where this commences from? Guess where this started?
From Africa.
From where I just come from the slave ports and the slave auctions of Badagry. This is where the segregation of families begun. And 15% of slaves, according to the oppressor's records, never made it to the Americas. 15% of us never made it. Google it. 15% of us never made it. So if approximately 50 million, and that is not a fact. 15% is the statistical fact, okay? But when I said 80, 90 million of us went through the transatlantic slave trade of 400 years, 4 centuries, and you've got to think, you've got to weigh out the portions intelligently. If the Spanish owned the slave trade, the transatlantic slave trade, for the first 150 years approximately, and the British picked up the slave trade for the latter part of it, the 250 years that they ran the slave trade, we can roughly work out without the stats that 30 million were stolen by the Spaniards and 50 to 60 million were probably stolen by the Brits. Is that fair to say, Captain?
Yeah.
So if we bear that in mind, if we've got a stat of 50 million through the British slave trade, the transatlantic slave trade, when it was run by the British, 15% of them slaves never made it. What happened to them slaves, the so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians that never made it? One, I'll give you a heads up. One, out of that 15%, some of that 15% died on the ships of diseases. Okay, so where would the other portion in that 15%? What would have happened to them, Matt?
That judgment in the chamber, that could be one of them.
That's another one. What else?
Rebellion, war.
That's the one I'm looking for. Shark food. A portion of this 15% became shark food. And according to what I learned in Badagry, the larger portion of that 15% that didn't make it to the Americas and the Caribbean and Central and South America and the Caribbean, the largest portion of that 15% that never made it were shark food, became shark food. So I'm not going to split the 15% and say 2% died of disease and 1% were killed in the slave auctions through rebellious behavior, and then 13% became shark food. But you can do the research yourself. If you need the numbers, just know that 15% of us never made the journey. 15% of us never finished the journey. May have started the journey, but like the captain said, a portion of that 15% were killed, were beheaded and hung in the auction after the chambers, after the adjudication or the kangaroo court. So you can paint your own picture of what Badagry, the scene of Badagry, and what it was really like. It was just as horrifying as any slave plantation in the southwest coast of America, the southern states of America, and the islands in the Caribbean and South America. It was horrific. Badagry. Some of the things I saw and learned in Badagry were horrific. Horrific. John, I told you John 8:3. Give me John 8:34, Bob Shaw.
The book of John 8:34. Jesus answered them.
Who answered?
Jesus answered them.
So this is red writing. This is Jesus talking. Read on, Bob Shaw.
Verily, verily, I say unto you, whosoever committed sin is the servant of sin.
Okay, so read that again, loud and clear, Bob Shaw.
John 8:32. Jesus answered them.
34.
Verse 34. Jesus answered them. Verily, verily, I say unto you, whosoever committed sin is the servant of sin.
Okay, so you're a slave. Christ is telling you're back in Badagry. You're in spiritual slavery. So listen, there's many versions of slavery.
That's right.
There's many versions. According to Christ, if you don't keep the law, you may as well be back in Badagry because you are a slave to sin, according to Christ. And we have Christ to thank today for this second chance, for our redemption, this grace period we're going through at the minute. Christ, the Most High God and Christ alone is who we give thanks for this grace period. Nobody else. It's not the slave merchants. It's not the slave capturers. They've not redeemed us. It's not Abraham Lincoln.
That's right.
who drew up the 14th Amendment. It's not your slave plantation owners that few and far between showed any mercy and gave us an extra drink of water or an extra slice of bread. They did that not out of mercy. They did that out of greed, because they knew an ill slave would lose their money. So this is Badagry all over, and we're living Badagry today, mentally, spiritually. Okay, the chains and shackles have been released, Israel, but we're still in slavery. We're still in Badagry. We're still in that slave auction to this day. Why? Because we refuse to listen to our Father. We refuse to keep the laws, statutes, and commandments of the Most High God. That's why. Read that again, Baba Shah. Can you get me Leviticus 26, Baba Shah, sir?
One more video in a minute. All right.
Can't. What, you got one that you like?
Yeah. Well, the Leviticus, what, sorry?
No, give me I want John 8:34 reading again. I want Leviticus 26 and 38, Bob Shah.
Okay. Book of John 8:34. Jesus answered them, verily, verily, I say unto you, whatsoever committed sin is the servant of sin.
So if you understand this precept, you see how important it is to get in one of the UPK schools and start learning these laws, statutes, and commandments. You're a servant to sin. You're a slave to wickedness.
That's right.
You're a slave to Satan. You work for Satan. If you cannot keep these laws, and we can hear it now already, you so-called Christians up in the church saying, have you heard what these guys are teaching in the UPK? But we teach nothing that's not in our records. This is Christ talking. You Christians allegedly believe in Christ. This is red writing. But guess what? You don't believe in the Bible.
That's right.
You don't believe in Hamashiach Yahushai, aka Jesus Christ. And you don't believe in the Most High God. And that's the real problem for our people, as so-called Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians. We refuse to believe in the very thing we take claim to. Why? Because of Badagry, because of Egypt, because of the transatlantic slave trade.
Right.
We've adopted and inherited what the white man has taught us and told us. What the so-called white man used to keep us submissive. So if these Hamites used concoctions and spiked our water, the white man was very subtle with his trickery. He did it spiritually. He did it through our own records. He wasn't as obvious as the African, as the Hamite. The African just spiked our water and said, oh, screw these Negroes. They're not us. We hate them. We're just going to make them docile and submissive because they're stronger than us. They're faster than us. If we don't do this, they might overrun us and overtake us. They're too much for us. And we were the smallest in numbers according to our records. And the white man knew this. The white man had a similar, worse and similar spirit to the Hamite, to the indigenous African man. And we want to call ourselves Africans.
That's right.
But it's a separate, segregated black nation, black people that did this to us. They started the ball rolling. They built Badagry, not us. We didn't build Badagry. No Negroes, no Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans built Badagry. The Hamites built Badagry with us in mind as a possession to make money, to sell to the so-called white. That's it. And did you finish that? Or you're reading it again? And John 8:34, Christ is saying right here in red writing, who cannot keep the law, statutes, and commandments is back in Badagry. It might be spiritual this time, but you're back there in that slave auction. And 9 times out of 10, you know, a spiritual bondage can be worse than physical bondage. You know, your physical bondage is going to end one day. You're going to succumb to a physical bondage. Not true. You're going to succumb. It's going to end. When does it end? Your physical bondage ends when you die. But what does a spiritual bondage do?
Children.
On and ever through generations. Through generations. You cannot end that spiritual bondage until you snap out of it, until you walk through one of the doors of the ISUPK schools globally. That, and start to hear this truth and apply it to your life. That's when your spiritual bondage ends. Read that again, Bob. Sure.
Okay. Book of John 8, verse 32.
34, verse 34.
Verse 34. The book of John 8, verse 34. Jesus answered them, very, very, I say unto you, whosoever commits sin is the servant of sin.
Who what?
Whosoever commits sin
Whosoever commits sin did what?
is the servant of sin.
Is the slave of sin.
That's right.
And sin, the definition of sin is wickedness. Wickedness. Okay? So just listen to this here. This is Wikipedia. Okay, this is talking about Badagry, and for those of us that are back in Badagry, in that spiritual bondage, that mentality of Christianity, Islam, Rastafarianism, and all the other schisms that our people indulge in and lay up in, fornicating, lying, thieving, committing immoral acts and sins, wickedness. Okay, so let's just see what we can find on Wikipedia. This is regarding Badagry, the slave port that I just came from, in the west coast of Africa, in the state of Lagos, Nigeria. Okay, so the point of no return. So there's sections in Badagry, like we've seen the slave auction, there's 4 or 5 museums, and there's a piece on the coastline called the point of no return. Okay, and it says, Wikipedia says, the point of no return in Badagry. Can you still hear me? The point of no return in Badagry, Salakia, Nigeria, refers to Berafu Island, a historical slave port where millions of Africans, well, we know that's a lie. There's Wikipedia's first strike. They weren't Africans. They were Hebrew Israelites, so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians, were forcibly shipped to the Americas during the transatlantic slave trade. Where's the Americas? The Caribbean and South and Central America. Symbolized, the transatlantic slave trade symbolized by monuments marking the final departure point before the ocean voyage, hence the point of no return. Okay, the slave trade featuring landmarks like door of no return. And you know this king, the king of Nigeria, he lived in Badagry. He had a house in Badagry. I went through the royal Badagry home, the house. I went through it. I filmed it where the king lived, and that was right there in Badagry. It was a royal house, a so-called royal house, and this is where no slave ever entered. No slave was allowed in the royal house. Okay, and it's a monument to this day, almost like a museum. Parts of Nigeria's initiative, back to Wikipedia, to connect with its diaspora and promote heritage tourism, marking the brutal separation of families and culture. And this is the key, separating families and culture, because what happened to us and what's happening to us still to this day. Families separated, look in our communities, and as far as culture goes, we've been separated from our culture for 2-3 centuries, ever since they outlawed us from reading and writing, and we forgot our records, we forgot our language, we forgot where we came from. Our Zion became Gambia, Ethiopia, Kenya, Ghana, Nigeria, Egypt, Kemet. We became Egyptologists, everything but where we really came from.
Even Mecca,
Salakia.
Even Mecca.
Like we are the seed of Ishmael. And this is what's happened to us. We were separated from our families, and we're still separated from our families to this day. And we're separated from our culture. But we've been separated from our culture just as long as we've been separated from our families. Let's not forget, we was outlawed for reading and writing for 150 years, while they brainwashed us and gave us Christian sanity. Gave us all kinds of madness on them slave plantations. Anything to stop us speaking Hebrew. Anything to stop us reading our records. Anything to stop us remembering we came from Israel. We didn't come from Gambia or Nigeria. That was just a stepping stone for us when we ran away from the Romans, 70 AD. Want to play the video, sir, when you're ready? I don't know which video you're gonna play. To let you know that I had about 3-4 hours of footage.
One break it up.
Okay, so this is the dungeons where the slaves were kept.
You wanna rewind it, sir?
Okay, so this is the dungeons where the slaves were kept.
Watch this. This is the dungeons where the slaves were kept. Pay attention and watch this. So,
Let's go strong. We can. Because of the water.
okay, so if you just hold it, sir. Okay, so these are the dungeons, and anybody that knows anything about dungeons, dungeons are called dungeons because the definition of dungeon is beneath or below. Dungeons are always found underground. So we was kept underground where the air was very thin. Okay, so we wasn't oxygenated. It wasn't like the prison system today where you get an hour exercise every day. We went into these dungeons. We was fed minimal nutrition. We was fed just enough hydration so we didn't dehydrate, and we was kept there in the dark, day in, day out. We were dungeonized. We were destroyed physically. This is where the mental and spiritual destruction began, in these dungeons, because we were still, not that we was in high spirits or we was happy when we were caught in fishing nets and was tracked over the land to Badagry. But by the time we got to Badagry, some of us had caught fever, but the ones amongst us that had stayed healthy were still pretty strong and rebellious and kicking and screaming. And that's why we was taken to chambers, judging chambers, to be adjudicated and hung and beheaded. Yeah. So you can imagine a lot of us were still physically strong and still had that spirit, that fighting spirit in us when we got to Badagry. But if that trip to Badagry in that little cabin, that little carriage, that little wooden carriage, yeah, that didn't destroy us, the dungeons were the beginning of the destruction, the spiritual destruction, because this was hard. This was hard. And you can see how we was kept. Look at the mask of iron over our faces. Look at the chains and shackles. Let's run the video and see how we was living in these dungeons. And listen to the tour guide.
This is the slave dungeons.
Yes. We are on stone slave or kept here another market.
This is where they had my grandfather. Look at this.
Before this, the very deep, more than 50 to 20 feet. No staircase here before. They just take only ladder, put them, a ladder, take them out in the market day. No maximum, any state they cannot post at the dungeon.
And we know that Mashiach Yahushua is coming back for these demons.
Okay, so there you could see the conditioning of our people, so-called Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians in the dungeons. We couldn't even stand. The chains and shackles were bolted to the floor, and that yoke of iron around your neck. If we had a metal in the actual auction, I spoke about the metal bar above our heads that held us in place so we couldn't run out of the auction and around the quarters or out of the quarters. Well, they was actually bolted, that yoke of iron around our neck was actually bolted to the floor. It was bolted to the floor. So if a slave tried to stand up, he couldn't. He could stand up to a point where he was bending. So we was not getting physical use of our legs in these dungeons. We was actually sat down or kneeled down all the time. And imagine the ones amongst us in the early days that still knew they were Hebrew Israelites and were praying. And we're taught to pray on our feet, not on our knees and on our butts. We're taught to pray on our feet and face the east, face the holy city, Jerusalem. That's how we pray. But imagine if you couldn't stand up and you was used to praying 3 times a day. Can you imagine? My, any questions?
So the yoke of iron, massive, yeah? I heard that was supposed to get tangled up in trees and that, which I run away.
Well, I didn't do any tour of the land and the journey with the yoke of iron. All I saw was Badagry, the slave auction, the slave museum, the dungeons, the slave port, and the ancient slave ships, the monuments.
The yoke of iron was long, like forks and stuff, like, you know, spokes. So if you try to make a runner for it, it's just inconvenient, get caught in trees, you can't really jump.
Yes. Oh, the spikes that came up. Yes. There was 3 foot, there was 2 foot spikes like horns coming out of the yokes of iron. So, but that would have been in a bush when we initially was captured in fishing nets and other devices before they was loading us onto these tiny little sheep and goat carriages for transportation to Badagry. There is another slave port in Nigeria. I forget the name of it, but it's not as big as Badagry. And there was never the same number of slaves transported that was in Badagry. Badagry, there was 24% of our people transported through the transatlantic slave trade. And like I said before, that's just a staggering number to think that almost a quarter of the so-called Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians were stolen in Nigeria and transported through Badagry. Do you know what it tells us? It tells us that the most money from slavery was made in Badagry. Do you know that?
I don't know.
The most money, shekels, or whatever the Nigerian money was 500 years ago, or whatever they traded with, their gold, their silver coins. The most money was made in Badagry. Badagry is a rich port because of slavery. Because of slavery, yeah.
One more rundown on the shores, is that right?
Can't. Get me Leviticus 26 and 38.
Then because the slaves don't know where they are going to. It's just wherever they
Okay, rewind that, please, sir.
So you're welcome to this.
Okay, so this is the infamous slave port, named the point of no return. This is where we was taken from the slave auction, transported in these tiny carriages to the ports, to the ships, where we was branded and then loaded as cargo in chains and shackles. And let's watch and see what the tour guide has got to say about the point of no return. This is the most infamous part of Badagry, the point of no return.
Point of no return, also known as the route to unknown destination. Then because the slaves don't know where they are going to. It's just wherever the white man take them to. So then we have just these 2 arcs there. We call it the arc of departure. So they now march the slave down through the middle of this arc to the Atlantic Ocean. Then they pour from the Atlantic Ocean, they fetch from it, pour on them to make them a little bit clean. And now you see the...
Okay, so just look at that. Just look at that point of no return. Just look at that building, which is where the slaves were transported, taken up these steps, and they were washed with hoses because they deemed us unclean. But look how they was keeping us in the dungeons. Look how they wasn't giving us any daylight. Look how they was keeping us.
That's mad. Like, you know when you're standing in the car, you get the buyer coming on Tuesday, so you get a quick wash, quick valid Monday. There's this washing now, man, for the slave master. Yeah, man, make sure look good. Cause ain't no buyer washing man, you know, buyer man with feces and stinking. That's terrible, man. We like just like objects to them, man. That's crazy, man.
And we was marched up these steps, taken onto this. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. And I stood in the square corner where the slaves were hosed down and washed, just with bare water, no flannels, nothing to cause friction. And like we talked about hygiene, lose that top layer of dead skin cells. If you want to carry on playing it, otherwise.
White man's ship is not getting to this point. It takes a deeper water for the ship to anchor, so to be further from the shoreline. So they have to make use of a smaller boat to make the big ship at the middle of the sea. So from there to Brazil, Jamaica, Portugal, Barbados, and different places like that. And most times they even overload the ship. Maybe the ship is to take 600 slaves, they make it 1,000 or even more. When they now get to the IC and they say the ship is no longer stable, for it not to capsize, they throw some of the slaves inside the Atlantic Ocean. Or if they see some of them are sick, for them not to easily infect others, they throw them inside the ocean. So when you know all the slaves.
Okay, so we know a little of the history of Badagry. We know a little of the history of the west coast of Africa, mountainous and the transatlantic slave trade, the journey of us being thrown overboard as shark food. But we only know a small extent of the reason why we was thrown overboard. For example, we've only been taught we was thrown overboard because we was disease riddled, and to save the rest of the cargo and the rest of the ship, the workers, the merchants, the hierarchy, and the rest of the slaves, we was thrown overboard humanely to stop the spread of disease. What a load of cock and bull. They were so greedy, according to this tourist guide, they were so greedy, the slave merchants and the African hierarchy that was selling us, they overloaded the ships. So ships that was designed for 100 slaves, they was loading with 300 slaves. And then as they set out, they got 2, 3, 10 miles out to sea. They got to a point of no return. That's why this landmark is called the point of no return, because once the ships, because if the ships sailed 200, 300, 500 yards out and they realized they'd over capacitated the cargo, the slaves, too many slaves, they could have turned round and come back and offloaded the slaves and saved money. But there was a point of no return. I'm not sure whether it was 10 miles, 5 miles, but they got to a point where they didn't have enough fuel for the journey. Okay, it might have been 50 miles, it might have been 30 miles. They got to a point where they'd have had to pay for more fuel if they'd have come and redocked at Badagry. So to save money, it would have been cheaper than re-upping, reloading with fuel. It would have been cheaper to get rid of the slaves and throw them overboard. So not over disease-riddled slaves were thrown overboard as shark food. Healthy women, children, and men were thrown overboard because they knew that when they landed or docked in the Americas, they could use their insurance cover to get paid back by the insurers for the slaves that they'd murdered. And that's all it was about. It wasn't about health and safety like they make out today. It was all based on money and finance. That's every part of the slave trade. There's no good part of the slave trade, so we can't call it the good, the bad, and the ugly. It's just the bad and the ugly. That's right. That's all the slave trade was. So when they teach us at school a small portion of history of the slave trade, and they say, oh, well, the slave merchants were wicked, but They did have a heart because they stopped the rest of the slaves catching the diseases that some of the slaves, and all these slaves that were thrown overboard were dead anyway, but they was riddled with worms, they was riddled with malaria, they was riddled with yellow fever, all kinds of diseases and skin diseases. But that's not true, and that's a damn lie. They overlooked, they was greedy, and not just the slave merchants, the hierarchy of Nigeria. They was greedy, they oversold slaves, they overcapacitated the ships, and they got to a certain point of no return where they realized the ship's going to capsize. The tour guide just told us this ship is going to capsize if we don't lose some weight. So what weight did they lose? They had they had livestock on board as well, animals, dogs, sheep, lambs that they was transported also. They chose to throw overboard as so-called blacks, Hispanics, and native Indians. Guess what? Their sheep, their lambs, their chickens, they weren't insured. But guess who was insured for the journey? The Negro slaves, the blacks, Hispanics, and Native American, Native Indian slaves. They were insured. We were insured. So they would not lose no money if they got rid of their cargo, which were the slaves. They would not lose no money if they threw blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians overboard as shark food. And that is the real reason why we was thrown overboard, not necessarily because we was disease infested. Is there any more, sir?
I'm really killing today, man. It's a lucky.
That left the shore of East Africa, got to their final destinations. And then there used to be like small barracoons at the shoreline. So let's say the ship gets filled up. Instead of them taking the slaves all the way to the Brazilian barracoon over there, they just store them in the next ship arrive. So I work from there. Yes.
So this is where the slaves sailed from. This is where the slave ship sailed from. Point of no return. History in the make.
Looks like an NEC car park. Looks like the NEC car park in Birmingham. Yeah. Slovakia. Okay.
This is coming like the NEC car park in Birmingham and Leicester.
So it's displayed before goes down. So on the real, we'd been underfed, we was dehydrated, we was weak. Now this is not just the journey across land to Badagry or slave auctions. This is from the slave auctions, weeks, for some of us, months in a dungeon with no daylight, minimal food, minimal hydration, being poisoned every day, getting weaker and weaker. Don't forget there was poison in our water. So, and we was walking up this ramp that if you stretched it out would have been a quarter of a mile long. Talking about 300, 400, 500 yards long. We're walking up this ramp, marched with a chain shackle, heavy metals all over our bodies. We're already weak. We're already docile. We've already been spiked and poisoned. We're not moving very well. We're moving gingerly. And they make us walk another quarter of a mile up this ramp to get hosed down, to get showered and watered down, instead of giving us a goddamn shower and making us clean ourselves. If they really wanted clean merchandise, because that's what we were. That's what we were. Let's call a spade a spade. We was merchandise to these Hamites and these Edomites. That's all we were. We was nothing more. We was a threat, yes, and they feared us, but we was money. We was ching-ching to them. Is there any more on that? I think we're gonna see where we was hosed down at the top. Okay, so this is the area where we was. This is the area where we was hosed down. Cut that other one. Let's go to Leviticus 26 and 38. So this is the area where they marched us up to get hosed down, then marched us all the way back down after a 10-15 minute hosing. Yeah. Marched us back down in our chain and shackles to get loaded onto the slave merchant ships. That was our experience in Badagry. It's not a place of fond memories. We all follow this. Leviticus 26 and 38, Bible Kasha.
Leviticus 26 and 38. And ye shall perish among the heathen.
We shall do what?
Perish among the heathen.
Read.
And the land of your enemies shall eat you up.
And the what?
Land of your enemies shall eat you up.
You see, this is a judgment from the Most High God. This is our punishment for not keeping the laws, statutes, and commandments. Read.
God, verse 39. And they that are left of you shall pine away in their iniquity in your enemies' land, and also in the iniquity of their fathers.
What verse is this?
39 now.
39, yeah. Stop at the end of 39.
God, shall they pine away in them?
Okay, but this is self-explanatory. These verses are so accurate and precise to our conditioning today. Are they not? Who can refute our plight? This is so accurate to how we are living today. They virtually had me in tears when I read these verses. And you're in Badagry and you're reading this precept. You can see everything so clearly.
Next question. When you was there, yeah, did you see it as, oh, it's in a museum? Or did you feel it like, oh shit, this happened? Like,
it exactly, yeah. I was going through the motions. When it really hit me was when I started moving with these tour guides and going from museum to museum, to the auction, to the dungeons, to another museum, to the coastal point of no return where we was washed, and I had to listen to these tour guides off camera before I was rolling, telling me this is what the white man did to us, like it had happened to them, these Hamites. And that's when it hit me, and that's when I was welling up and my eyes were full of water. I was saying, that's when it hit me, really, the severity of not just the 12 tribes of Israel, but the whole world believes that this injustice was done to Africans and not me and you, not us, our people. We are never going to get our just rewards, our just deserts until our King returns. It's not going to happen. The world is never going to know this until our King returns. But the best thing we can do in the ISUPK under the command of General Yohanna is keep pushing this on our people, right. So-called Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians. We're in the right place. We're doing the right work. Let's go. Let's read verse 40. Read 39 again for me, Barbara Kasha.
Verse 39. And they that are left of you shall pine away in their iniquity in your enemies' lands, and also in the iniquities of their fathers.
Okay, in the USA, in Venezuela, in Brazil, Chile, Cuba, Mexico. The list is endless where we're going to pine away. Wherever you find our people today, China, Morocco, Ethiopia, Jamaica, we're Birmingham, Leicester, Gloucester, Manchester, London. We're pining away. This is relevant. And when you have to listen to a people that didn't go through this, that the world feels sorry for, that believes went through this, that's what woke me up. That's what brought tears to my eyes. That's when it hit home. The realness and the severity of what our people went through, and another people are condoled for it. They get condolences for it. And it never happened to them. It happened to us, so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians. How dare these Africans take our history and make it theirs?
That's right.
They are the cause of this,
That's
along
right.
with the white man. This never happened to them. Verse 40, Bible Kasha.
If they shall confess their iniquity.
If they do what?
Confess their iniquity.
And here's your chance, Israel. Here's your chance. Confess, repent, fast, pray, get in the ISUPK under the command of General Yohana. This is not difficult, Israel. It's not that difficult. Read.
If they shall confess their iniquity and the iniquity of their fathers with their trespass, which they trespassed against me, and that also they have walked contrary unto me, and that I have walked contrary unto them, and have brought them into the land of their enemies. If then their uncircumcised hearts be humbled, and they then accept the punishment of their iniquity, then I will remember my covenant which with Jacob, and the covenant with Isaac, and also my covenant with Abraham will I remember, and I will remember the land.
And if this doesn't bring water to your eyes, nothing will.
That's right.
Because our Father clearly loves us. Did you hear what the Most High God just had to say about us? He clearly still loves us. And who is more long-suffering than him? Who is more long-suffering than our Father, who art in heaven? My goodness. My goodness. This is what makes me cry. This is what brings water to my eyes. Knowing that how we've dealt with our Father and he still loves us, he's still prepared to give us this chance that we probably don't deserve.
That's right.
What verse was that, Baba Kashar?
That was 41 or 2, you know.
41. Okay. If we've got to learn from our mistakes, if we change our wicked ways, even now, if we change our wicked ways, you see the light at the end of the tunnel. He's kicked open that wall and gave us light at the end of the tunnel. And he's told us right here in Leviticus.
26 years. Leviticus 26 years.
Yeah. There's light at the end of the tunnel. If this doesn't bring water to your eyes, if this doesn't make you emotional enough and give you the spirit, that kick up the arse, that vibe you need to get into one of the ISUPK schools under the command of General Yohana and do what we need to do now, not tomorrow, not later, now, then nothing will. There's nothing. That Christian church is not going to do it for you.
That's right.
That mosque is not going to do it for you. Your Rastafarian elders is not going to do it for you.
That's right.
Revelation 22 1, Baba Kasha. No, Revelation 22 and 12, Baba Kasha. How much time we got left? This is the last precept.
The book of Revelation 22, verse 12. And behold, I come quickly, and my reward is with me, to give every man according to his work shall be.
Okay, so this is a judgment. According to Christ, who is this speaking?
Right.
Okay, so this is, if he's not speaking, I've not even got a red letter Bible. This is in front of me. This is according to Christ. Okay, so this is Christ speaking. Read that again, Baba Kishar.
Revelation 22:12. And behold, I come quickly, and my reward is with me.
So Christ comes quickly, and his reward is with him. Who the hell said judgment is just a punishment alone? That's what you learn in the Christian church. We learn in the Christian church a judgment is punishment alone. But that's not what the Bible, that's not Christ what said. Christ, a judgment can be a reward. Read that again, bro. You got something, Moses.
You see, this psychology that they use to tell you that judgment is always a punishment, right? So it's scary if you don't pay a tithe and offering, God is going to punish you. And all of these things they try to use as psychology to play an emotion. So now, when they come into the ISUPK, you get to realize that it's not hard punishment.
There you go.
Reward.
They give that a clap. Damn right. You got some more? Oh, read that from the top to the bottom.
Revelation 22:12.
Sure.
And behold, I come quickly, and my reward is with me, to give every man according to his works shall be.
Okay, and when Christ says he comes quickly, do we know what this means to break this down? What does Christ mean when he says when he comes quickly?
Like suddenly.
When Christ returns, the Bible tells us he's going to come like a thief in the night. You're going to go to bed one evening, you've just laid with your woman, you feel top of the morn, you feel like God's gift, you've excuse the French, cracked a nut, you're happy as hell, your children are happy as Larry, there's not a weight on your shoulder, and then in the middle of the night, that sky's going to crack open and it's over. And guess where you've been for the last 35 years? In that goddamn Christian church, making a fool of yourself. And guess what? When he comes quickly, your judgment is not going to be a reward. It's going to be according to your works. That's what Christ says here. Read that again, Baba Kasha.
And behold, I come quickly, and my reward is with me, to give every man according to his works shall be.
Do you really want to see Badagry again in the kingdom? Do you want to see Badagry? And let's be honest, yeah, this is the conclusion of the class. Yeah, slavery is in the Bible. We kept servants. Let's not mix words. Let's not beat around the bush. Hebrew Israelites kept servants in the Bible. But you see the slavery, the captivity, the bondage that we went through, the punishments that was afflicted on us by our Father, was never ordained by our Father to be as deep as it got. Remember, we had slaves, we had servants, but guess how we dealt with our servants? Guess how we dealt with our slaves? We was righteous.
That's right.
Our servants got to go home to their families at night. They got their own houses at the side of our houses, their own quarters, and they lived. They were never chained and shackled. We never had servants that we put in dungeons. We never had servants that we sold at slave auctions. If the rest of the world had followed our lead and kept slaves and servants how we kept them, they would have been righteous. We never raped, we never mutilated, we never chopped off arms, feet, we never hung our slaves, we never whipped out their backs. We dealt with our slaves like we deal with our families and children. Yes, they worked for us, but they had a reward just like the priests and the prophets of the ISUPK are going to get a reward from Christ. Not the same reward. Then they've got the kingdom of heaven like we're going to get. But they was never treated like how we was treated by the goddamn Hamites and the goddamn oppressor, the so-called white man. Okay, that's the difference. That's the difference. And judgment, for those of you that are Christians out there and you believe that judgment is a punishment, well, Christ tells you in Revelation 22:12 that every man's going to receive their judgment according to their works. Read that last part again and we're done.
To give every man according to his works shall be.
Okay, so when Christ returns, the brothers and sisters in the ISUPK will receive a judgment called reward. And that's the difference. between the so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians that are in the Christian church and the blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians that are in the ISUPK under the command of General Yohana. And that's a done deal, Israel.
That's right.
It's up to you. And with that, I'm going to call the class. I'm going to hand the class over to Officer Mozart for the security announcements. No, I had the wrong Bible.
Mine? You mean?
I wanted the red writing.
Oh, go on, sir.
ISUPK, this is the ISUPK security announcement. We are the ISUPK, started out of 125th Street, Harlem, New York. Rules for new brothers and sisters. When a new brother or sister comes into the school, they are off limits. For the first 6 months, they are to be saluted only. They are here to shed themselves off the world. If they need transportation, the teacher will arrange it. After six months, if a brother or sister has interest in a particular person, he or she must get permission from the head to speak to a brother or sister. There is another 6 months in which the brother and sister will court each other. After this 6 month period, the brother and sister will get permission from the head to marry. Tithes, which is a commandment. Numbers 18 verse 21, Malachi 3 verse 8 to 10 means tithes in the Hebrew, Mahashara, 10% of every penny of any increase the Lord gives you. Give to the Treasury Department or teacher. Priest fund, free will offering for priests, not mandatory. Whatsoever amount you would like. Upcoming Holy Convocation.
Yeah, Purim.
Purim. Slakia.
Remind Achium and Achiawat. Sorry. Announced from the convocation, from the sheet. Remind Achium and Achiawat to check the bulletin board in the hallway. If anyone wants to be a trooper in the school, start wearing all black, boots, shirt, pants, headscarf, headband, and scarf. Sorry. Hi, Madam. Madam Shabbat.
Let me give teacher one courtesy salute.
Give the teacher one courtesy salute. Madam. Shabbat. And Madam. Barak.
Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shabbat.
Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shabbat.
With that,